Welcome to Behind the Backline, the podcast where we chat with merchants, brands, and industry professionals in the musical instrument, pro audio, and event technology space about their products, services, industry trends, stories, and more. Join us now as we dig into the stories behind our favorite backline gear.
Welcome to episode 24 of Behind the Backline. I'm Matt Jacoby of Octave Media, and today I am talking with Jeff Schallenberger of Sugar Percussion. Thanks for joining me today, Jeff.
Thanks for having me.
Excuse me, Jefferson.
Jeff is fine. I use Jefferson when I'm working for you. I can charge more for that.
Got it. Yeah, it does sound a little more ritzy, and I'd expect that out of a Jefferson.
Jeff is the redheaded kid that lives down the street.
Got it. So yeah, let's kind of start off things by sharing a little bit about who you are with the listeners.
Who am I? I am a California resident. Started the drum company about, I guess the first kit was about 8 years ago, but it was pretty part-time for a while. I'm actually a furniture maker for 20 years. So this whole thing started when my old Fibes kit that I got when I was 12 finally conceded to old age and poor packing, and by that point I had started to learn how to make furniture, and I was too broke to buy a new kit, so I cannibalized all the hardware and started playing around in the wood shop, figuring out how to make new shells. So that was the humble beginning of the drum company.
Cool. And like, is there, I guess, was your furniture company have any like relation to Sugar Furniture, or was that a whole different or whole separate thing?
Whole separate thing. Okay. I've been doing custom residential furniture for all those 20 years, and continue to do it. So yeah, separate thing. But the vocabulary from learning how to do that was easily transferable to this kind, and that influenced how I make the drums, just because I was coming from a standpoint. I wasn't a drummer that wanted to figure out how to make drums. I was a woodworker that wanted to figure out how to make drums. So I had a skill set, and this particular method that I use made the most sense to me from a woodworking standpoint.
No, that's kind of a cool different angle, because I've talked to people like other drum makers who have gone from like you said, the drummer who wanted to make his own drums and started refurbishing old kits and attempted to kind of go for more of a sound versus materials. But you come from the material side first, so that's a cool different angle. Yeah,
I had a lot of experience with the different materials, and actually, when I first decided to dive headlong into it, before that I was renting space to an acoustic guitar maker, and he had me do all his milling for backs and sides and tops, and so we were constantly having these discussions about why are you using this wood, what kind of sound does this produce, and why would you use that back with this top with this side, and blah blah blah. And then when I wanted to make my own shells, I was recalling those conversations and figuring, well, that was a wooden instrument and I want to make a wooden instrument. Why wouldn't all of that same information transfer? And so that's kind of where I started.
I would imagine that making wood furniture and transferring it to a triangle or a cowbell would not be the exact same thing.
Yeah. Yeah. From a like a maker standpoint, there wasn't a learning curve. To make a circle, I had been for years making things more complex than a circle. So that part didn't scare me. I knew I could make a beautiful circle. My question was whether I could make something sound good. And so sort of the woodworking skills with those combined with the conversations with that guitar maker is, could I put those together and make something that sounded good? So those were kind of the ingredients.
Cool. So when was your like aha moment? Like if you had a moment where what you just created works well with a drum head and is producing the sound that you feel is adequate or meets or exceeds your standards, did you have kind of a moment where you realized that you had stumbled upon it?
I think I had a series of those moments. I think it's been a moving target. That early on, what I thought was great, I wouldn't jack my car up with now. But at the time, I thought it was great. My first drum, I threw a head on it and hit it, and it sounded like a drum. I mean, that's a pretty broad definition. And I was pretty pleased. And then I made some tweaks, and the next one made the first one sound like crap. And the next one, and that's how, that felt like a natural thing. That felt like how that should go. And those leaps, or the rungs on those ladders on that ladder got closer and closer as I got better at it. And then it was more nuanced tweaks and smaller tweaks, and to when I really felt like, okay, now these are good enough that I could show somebody. So it wasn't crap, then excellent. It was less crappy, good, better. It was an escalation. So there were several of those moments.
Like anything in the world, version 1 is always the worst thing in the world, and it just, that you have that bench.
Yeah, but it seemed damn fine at the time. I was so proud of it. My mom still has the first cutting board I ever made in 7th grade. It hangs on her wall, and it's terrible. And I was so proud of that when I was there. Yeah.
I get it. My son's at that point right now where he's making all kinds of things out of paper, and he has to explain every single one to me. And I'm sure as he gets older, as he gets into kindergarten, it's going to continue to get better. And I'm like, this is great.
Yeah.
He's got to
keep a couple of those.
Yeah,
keep a couple of those to show him later. My mom has kept everything, bless her.
Oh, we're going to have to need a really big box, because I swear I go and pick him up every day from kindergarten camp right now, and there's at least 5 to 10 things. And, multiply that over the summer, and that's a really big box full of paper items.
That's great, man. That's great that he has that running through him, that he just wants to, even if it's all dog shit.
It is. He's a very creative little guy, and very, very impressed so far. I say he takes after me, but my wife and I are both musicians. We both come from creative backgrounds.
Well, that's nice that that's passed on. That's good.
Yeah. So in terms of like which types of drums do you make, tell us a little bit about the actual products themselves. Is it all snare drums? Is it kits? Is it everything? Or
well, we started with just snares. It was an easiest way for me to get the information that I wanted. And that was that, again, recalling those conversations between the different species, my thought was that if I could build a good drum, if I could make, let me back up. I felt like each wood had its own, for lack of a better term, voice. It had its own characteristics that distinguished it from another wood. And I felt like if you put that into a drum shell, you could really, and if you did it well, you could really exploit as much difference as possible. And I knew about plywood drums. I knew about how plywood was made. It didn't make sense to me from a drum building standpoint, because with all the glue that's involved, it really homogenizes the difference between different woods. So that range gets narrower. So I knew I wanted to make solid wood shells, and there were a couple different methods. And the stave method, like a wine barrel, it wasn't that I thought that was better than another way. It just made sense to me with the woodworking vocabulary that I already had. I wanted to make a circle. I knew my way around a wood shop, and that made sense to me. So that's where I started, and that's where I still am. That still makes sense to me. And it was also a matter of, does the drum industry need another drum builder? Which is a question I think should be asked regularly, because there is a lot of crap out there. As the drum industry does not have a monopoly on that. That could be said for any industry. But I didn't want to start something that I didn't feel could make that wouldn't make a contribution to the industry. So where in this industry did I feel like I could contribute? And it was this method that I felt like, I think I can make a really good circle in this method, and I think that would contribute. So that's what I pursued, and that's where I've stayed. That still makes sense. We make full kits now, so it got broader. And at the beginning, a lot of the R&D was just me grabbing every different species of wood I had and making the same size circle. And just to see what those differences, to sort of verify my intuition about this wood's going to sound like this and this wood's going to sound like that. And as that proved true, that then it was a matter of, well, which one of these sound the best to me? And so the cream sort of rose, and now I've narrowed that broad range to 3 to 5 different species that really, I think, best showcase the differences between the woods, and material that I know I can find that's quality material that'll last, material that'll look good 10 years from now instead of only looking good on delivery day, all those kinds of questions. Sorry, that's kind of a rambling answer to your question.
No, that's perfect. So does that mean, or does that kind of what I heard was, does that mean that Sugar is the only drum maker right now that creates solid wood drums versus plies?
No, not at all.
Oh, okay.
Not even close.
Okay.
It was more of, so there are 3 ways to make a solid wood shell. You can take a portion of a tree and you can hollow out the middle. You can steam bend the shell, or you can make it out of staves. The hollowing out version, that didn't make any sense to me as a woodworker. That feels like you've taken something that, every chunk of wood has a bunch of tension inherent in it, and it's figured out, if a tree's grown, it's figured out how to balance those tensions, and you remove 90% of it and then beat the crap out of it and hope it stays round or doesn't crack, or so that it sounded dicey to me. The steam bent method, Craviotto is 15 minutes down the road for me. I have yet to see a steam bent shell that's better than his, and I didn't think I could make one better than him. So why would I? That stopped at, I can't contribute anything better in that method. So the stave method, at the time when I started, there weren't as many. I mean, there are a lot of people doing it now, and some of them doing a fantastic job. At the time, I only knew about Brady drums out of Australia, and they were beautiful and sounded great, and everyone loved them. But it felt like a niche within the industry that there wasn't saturation. But I think they were using predominantly Australian woods, so there were some gaps still within that method that I thought I could offer. So that's part of why I chose that.
Cool. So does a solid wood shell tend to be heavier than a ply as well? I mean, I've actually knew about a ply before this, so.
No, not necessarily. It depends on the species. We use some species that are super soft and not very dense, and they're much lighter than plywood shells. And then I have shells that made out of wood that doesn't float, and that stuff is far heavier. So it's all over the gamut. And that's a heavy influencer on the sound of it. So that was what I was trying to exploit. That if I could make a good shell out of a softwood, it would sound wildly different than a good shell out of a hardwood, and sound very different than a well-made shell out of a medium density wood. So, like I said, the way that plywood shells are made, they have softwood plywood shells and they have hardwood plywood shells, and they sound different. But in the construction, you have to use a lot of glue to glue those plies together, and the glue is rigid in a way that kind of dilutes the difference between those softwoods and hardwood. So if you take a lot of that glue out, like in the solid wood methods, then you can spread out that range and really exploit the differences to a greater degree, if that makes sense.
I think so. I probably would need more.
That's great. That's as good as I've ever gotten from anyone. I think so.
Versus,
if this was a video interview, I'd see your gray eyes right now just nodding off to sleep. But
I'm not sleeping on the desk, I swear. No, I'm just kidding.
Okay, great.
So have you ever had this urge to would my drums make great coffee tables, and go back to furniture?
I still build furniture.
Okay.
And some of the bad shells, some of the ones that haven't turned out, they've been used for other things. Usually I like to blow them up or drive through them with cars or make videos of destruction. That the 12-year-old me is more satisfied with that. But not too many unused drum shells have ended up as furniture.
Well, that's good. That means you have a very good success rate on drum creation at this point.
Yeah, our attrition rate is pretty low.
Good.
Yeah.
So I know you mentioned it kind of at the beginning, but Sugar has been around for you said about 8 years or so?
8 years is probably the first shells that were made. And there was some time that was that was one of those early moments where I thought it was great and now wouldn't show anyone. It's probably been about 4 years since we were doing it wholeheartedly. At the beginning, it was all after hours because the only income was from the furniture. Now it's about 50-50 furniture and drums.
Cool.
And it'll swing back and forth. The furniture will will wane a bit and I've been lucky that the drum orders will pile in and I'll get through those, and then some furniture will be ordered. And it's good. My short attention span is better scratched by the variety.
Gotcha. So are they all available directly from you, or do you have anything at dealers or like retailers?
I sell directly and prefer it just because I really enjoy the conversations. A lot of all the builds start with conversations about what people are looking for, and I like to meet people that way and see if I can aim my building at what they're trying to get. But I also sell through Sweetwater and Vintage King Audio, and then just recently started selling through Nelson Drum Company in Nashville, Tennessee.
Cool. Well, that explains why all of your quote unquote e-commerce platform add to cart kind of things on your website are just your email. They all start with custom orders, basically.
Yep. I mean, we have our sort of flagship products, and those are what I sell most of. But we still make custom sizes, custom species of wood, and but again, it's I'm not making 10,000 shells a year, and it's $300, and you can just buy whatever. It's a more involved process, and I think better served by a conversation at the beginning. There's a reason why someone is deciding just to spend a lot more on a drum kit, and they have particular itches that they want scratched by this drum kit. And I think that's best served by someone who knows the material and a conversation between the two, or coming to visit the shop and they can see what I do. And so I'll always do the direct thing. That part is, I like the custom aspect. Like I said, I've been doing that for 20 years with the furniture, and it's just, to me, that's an integral part of the process.
It's kind of nice how it keeps you small, but it's a small, family-owned, premium, that kind of thing, and approachable, of course. But it's nice that you also have some options to go through a few different retailers, just to have some exposure and potentially just get your name out there at least.
Yeah, there's that. I think there's also a credibility factor. I think people are a little tentative when there isn't dealership. It's a thing that they're accustomed to, and it can lend some credibility to that. And the people that I work with as dealers have definitely done that, and they're all excellent, and I really enjoy and fruit from those relationships. I just also like to do it myself.
Yeah, no, definitely.
Those people can always refer. I have had people go through those dealers, but have more questions that they're more questions than their salesman can answer, and they can send them to me, and the sale will still go back through them. But it gets all the customers' questions answered, and then everybody feels better about doing the whole thing.
Yeah, for sure. So are you still the only person that makes them? You don't have any employees then for the drums?
I have one employee.
Okay.
And he is great and can make drums as well as I can. And it takes a lot. I've worked for myself for 22 years. And I'm a control freak about that stuff. It's my name, it's my daughter's name on the drum. So it took a while to get to the point where I know that I could ship something that he made, and I would gladly put my name on it. He and I are working at the same level. I have more experience about picking the wood and being able to go to the lumber store and see a plank of wood that's still rough cut and you can't really see what's going, but I can tell what's going on and I'll know which wood to pick. But that's just from years of experience. But the actual making of the shell, that's trainable. And this person that works with me, Noah, is fantastic. So
cool. So yeah, you're still doing kind of the material selection and everything, but he's got your making the drum process down, and it's sugar approved.
Yeah, and so we go and I pick out the wood, and then we come back and we chop it up, and we sort of gravitated to, there are several steps to the process, and we have a good rhythm in that he's got one machine dialed and I've got another one, and we can be really efficient without, we can just put on headphones, turn on tools, and not speak for the whole day and just spit out beautiful circles. And we kind of gravitate towards the tools that we're really good at, kind of thing. Yeah.
Cool. You got the joys of having a coworker but none of that cubicle talk. So it's almost like working remotely. You got a great corporate office going on without any of that.
I don't know what any of that shit is. I've never had that.
Oh, I suppose. Yeah, it's been a while.
We don't have a water cooler that we talk shit about other people at. We wait till the tools turn off and then we do that, but it's just us. So you can't really talk about anybody else. It's great. It's wonderful.
All you can do is think it while you're cutting. And
oh, I'm sure he thinks it about me. He's a far kinder person than I am. So, yeah.
So you kind of mentioned that the sugar name is derived from your daughter. What's kind of the story behind, why did you select that, and how is she influential to the drums?
Well, I think I mentioned you the name we selected because we couldn't get off some food kick for a middle name. So Sugar was the least offensive one, or at least one that we thought she would have the least trouble with later on in life. And then when I started the company, I think for me, I realize when I reflect on in situations like this, I realize I have not, in 22 years of making things, I have never made anything that someone needs. I have only been making stuff that people want. And part of me feels gross for that, and part of me feels like that's an important thing too. And there should be beautiful stuff in the world, and people derive pleasure and benefit and joy from that. And so when I started this drum company, I talked about feeling like I had something to contribute. And so there's a real importance to it. And me naming the company after my daughter, who is my far and above favorite human in this world, just felt appropriate. I wanted, it's almost like a governor that sometimes if the company were named after me, maybe I'd send out a bad drum every once in a while if I were in a crap mood. But if it's named after my daughter, there's no way I could do that. It was almost like an insurance of quality.
And you'd have to answer to the boss if you had to go home and tell her that you sent out a bad drum.
Yeah, exactly. And also there's going to be a lot of therapy to pay for, because I'm sure I've screwed her up in many ways. So half the profits will go to that.
Sugar Percussion. We make drums to pay for therapy. That's not a really good tagline, but
it's honest.
Oh, that's funny. So, because they're custom and everything, a lot of instrument makers I've talked to are, they have their artist roster, their family. Do you have any major players that you're proud to say play our Sugar drum?
I have some people that are famous. I really don't like that whole part of the industry. Mm-hmm. I've been really fortunate to meet some people that would fall under that category that you're talking about, and through mutual friends. I've never done a conventional endorsement program. I don't give away drums for free to get people to tell people that they love them. That always felt incredibly gross to me. Mm-hmm. I'm not a good salesman like that. I don't like that game. And if I get emails and the first thing in the email is people asking for something for free, I never learned that kill 'em with kindness thing. I was a terrible waiter. I just don't like it. So yes, we do have some people that they play in bands that I used to buy their records and think they're amazing players, but it was always more of an organic meeting. Mutual friends, or I've actually geared a lot of the drum building towards the producing side of things, because that always fascinated me, more than just sort of drum nerdery talk. I was always fascinated about recording instruments, and so I've made a lot of studio equipment for producers and engineers, and that has led to, from them owning instruments, and they have great drummers coming through, that's led to relationships with the drummers that have seen the instruments, instead of just finding the most popular person on Instagram and offering them a free drum just so they'll say it sounds good, kind of thing. I've kind of dodged that whole thing.
It's all right. You don't need any Taylor Swift, right? That who doesn't play drums at all, just to be out there banging on something to say you own it.
Actually, that was the one endorsement thing that I wanted to do, was find my favorite glam rock guitarists, heroes from the 80s, and get them and do endorsement photos of if I played drums, I would play these kind of things. If I had a picture of Eddie Van Halen holding my drums, that part I would love, but that would just be the spoof side of endorsement, just sort of mocking the grossness of it all. But
yeah. Well, what would make it better is making sure that your daughter was in the photo with them to just kind of validate and make it really awesome, and she'd get a chance to meet your idols and all.
Exactly. Oh, I'm plenty fine exploiting her to meet my guitar idols of the 80s. That's fine. I've got no shame in that.
That's where you screwed up. That's where the therapies come in.
Yep. Oh, that's only one of the ways.
Well, before we wrap it up, I kind of wanted to let you get a chance to share the website and any of your social media so people can check out the products.
All the normal stuff, sugarpercussion.com. Every social media stuff is just the name of the company. And it seems to be the main form of marketing for all industry people now. So that's where I post pictures of the drums. When I get sick of posting pictures of drums, I post pictures of cars and my kid and my dog, and then I post some more drums because people complain, and then I get sick of it again. And so there's a smattering of stuff on there.
You have that 50% furniture, 50% drum thing going on Instagram and Facebook as well, huh? Where it's, whenever the photos change it up. But
yeah, it's kind of what I post what I'm excited about. I imagine a marketer would tell me that's not quite the best way to go, but it feels more in a world of complete inauthenticity. It feels a little more authentic. It's mood-based posting. Yeah.
Well, as a marketer, the authentic posting is definitely the best way. So I think you're doing just fine.
As if anyone can tell what's authentic anymore. Anyway,
that's true. That's true. Photoshop has destroyed everything, so it just really there's nothing left.
Yes.
So.
Those are my real boobs in the photos. Those are not enhanced.
And on to that note.
Yes. Sorry. I've been so clean up until then.
You did so well, and then at the end, we'll just wrap it up in there. Anyway, so, well, I want to thank you for joining me today. This has been great.
You're very welcome. I appreciate the privilege.
Thank you for listening to Behind the Backline, brought to you by Octave Media, an inbound marketing agency focused on helping music merchants develop an automated solution to increase website sales. You can find Octave Media at www.octave.media. Don't forget to subscribe to our podcast in iTunes or Google Play Music to learn more about great products and companies in the musical instrument, pro audio, and event technology space, and be sure to leave a review to let us know what you thought of this episode. We encourage you to share us with your friends and colleagues via social media, and we'll see you next time. Take care.